Wynton Marsalis tells us that the heart of music is its rhythm. One of the foundations of rhythm is the bass. It's a building block in a song. It's an underlying principle. A principle that we feel in our bodies and in our souls. It's the root. It's the one. And as David Allan Coe said, it is not the beauty of a building you should look at. It's the construction of the foundation that will stand the test of time. Ampeg has stood the test of time. It's the sound of bass.
And a little Stevie, did I hear there? Yeah. Here we go. One of my favorite Stevie lines.
Welcome to Yamaha 440 Sessions. I met up with one of Canada's first call bass players, Drew Birston at Lynx Music in Toronto, to talk about foundations.
That's it's the Nemesis Delay. It's a loaded up sample of Echo Rec 2, a vintage delay. And then there's another really nice one in here that's their own thing. It's kind of like a shimmer pog with reverse delay. Kind of stuff. So it's just kind of atmospheric. Hey, what's up everybody? I'm Drew Birston. I'm a bassist in Toronto, Canada. I play with Chantal Kreviazuk, Amanda Martinez, and the Sultans of String. The old trick of like checking out Jocko's sound, and he didn't actually use a chorus, he used an Mxr old delay. And so his chorus sound is actually from a delay. And so I've been experimenting with just using a delay but making it super short and having some modulation. So like got a bit of that vibe.
That's incredible.
I think you hit me up to Gillan Dorsey, bass player for Bowie.
Yeah.
I think you were one of the first ones to tell me about her, and just unbelievable. Like she's so. I met her at APAP in New York City. most modest person and just like down to earth and approachable. I read that she was using the TC when she needed to do a fretless vibe, but like with a fretted bass. And so I picked it up after, and it's kind of cool. It's got, and it's you can get it like nice and intense and slow. You know, the more trad chorus is like a kind of faster, but that's kind of actually, you can get. And then, of course, for all those like for those, you know, kind of 80s kind of vibe, it's like, you know, great for that. So I'm born and raised in Winnipeg, and I came from a musical family. My dad played stride dance piano, probably mostly like maybe in dance halls and also just to entertain, you know. Even when we would go camping, he would break out an accordion and play tunes. And my brothers were all into various kinds of music, everything from Bob Dylan. My oldest brother was into the Beatles. So my one oldest brother was into classical music. He had posters of Beethoven all over the wall in our basement in Winnipeg. We called it the concert hall, and we had an upright piano there. And in Winnipeg, in the winter, you know, it gets pretty cold. So a lot of basement bands came out of Winnipeg. In our high school, we were really fortunate because we had a great music program. And so we had choir, we had band, we had a string, department. We had a great music teacher. One of the things we got to do was I was playing clarinet, bassoon, oboes. On the side, I was playing guitar at home, dabbled around on upright bass at school. The school bass that they had that we'd often play with the choir was a Yamaha SA70, beautiful red bass. And it was a hollow body, great, beautiful, warm sound. And they had a big Yamaha amp there. It was a 15-inch speaker. And, you know, we would use that for playing with the choir. And one of my favorite memories, musical memories, was playing for my grade 12 graduation in the big gym with the choir, singing, playing that Yamaha bass. And like, I was like, that's it. Like, I've arrived. That was the best part of the graduation. You know, the ceremony was like whatever later on. It was kind of like a letdown compared to that. And so fast forward that, I ended up studying music, like at St. FX University and McGill University, and playing my upright bass. I kind of switched mostly to playing upright then. And from there, when I finished studies in jazz on the upright, I moved back to Winnipeg for a spell, and a buddy of mine, Mark Mariash, said, "Hey, Drew, you should come to Toronto. There's this audition in the Now magazine for a band." You know, I didn't know the band name at the time, but it was Lava Hay, these two folk singers. So I like loaded up my little Tercel, drove to Toronto, did the audition, got the gig, and that started a new chapter of my life, which was, you know, a deep love of pop music that I'd always had. And then the other cool one with the octave or two, which is messing around with the Moog thing, is you can get and then Moogs kind of have that almost like a distortion. So if you and then
that's amazing.
Yeah, and sometimes I'll mix that with a bit of the delay, and you know, get some drum and bass kind of. And it's got 2 octave down, so you can kind of like in a small amp, and because of the tubes, you can get that. You're getting the low end. Like, that's why I love 15s, because they're full range, and you can only use this octave pedal like if you've got the subs. Otherwise it just sounds like a radio, like transistor radio or something. You can't hear the effect.
Right.
So that's one thing I love about the B15s for sure. I've got to say that high school experience where, you know, was playing with the choir, I didn't know it at the time, but like that would be foreshadowing my career down the road. You know, another highlight, really memorable experience for me, there's two. I'll try and keep them short. Chantal Kreviazuk, when I was playing with her in the band in Winnipeg, which was my hometown, we played for the War Child benefit, which Chantal and Rain are a big part of and big supporters, and it's such a great cause. And that was a magical day. There were like thousands of people. It was an outdoor stage in downtown Winnipeg, hometown. And, you know, like, I think the Tragically Hip were playing, they were rocking it. And Angelique Koujo was an amazing African artist that I don't know if I'd heard of before, but she had a full band with dancers and horn section. It was just like, you know, tear the roof off the joint kind of music. And Chantal did a really powerful set with her band. And just being on that stage and feeling the energy and just being there for a good cause was really incredible. And another experience with Chantal, again, it was an arena show. We were opening up for the Bare Naked Ladies. It was a 6-week US tour, some Canadian dates. And the Bare Naked Ladies were super personable, warm, and they invited us up on stage for kind of like a collaboration. Well, let's get the opening band, Chantal, up for a tune. And we did Careless Whisper by Wham. And I can remember it, man. It was just like eating up every second of it. Like, it was surreal, like being on stage, just feeling that energy of the audience. Another highlight, which was we played New York City at Madison Square Garden, which was surreal. And
What does that feel like?
oh, it was amazing. It was kind of, there's a funny story behind that because, you know, like we were the opening band, and before the show we had, you know, if you're on an arena tour, oftentimes you'll get like the hockey team's like dressing room, which is giant, right? But we had one small dressing room because we were the opening band, so we were all crammed into it. I remember I was shaving before the show and I had to go up to the nosebleeds and find a washroom because there's a lineup at the washroom and shave, and it's kind of like, hey, how you doing? Just, you know. And then we went and did the show, but it was just magical because I love New York City, and the people are amazing there, and such great audience. And to be on stage there was just magical. Today, Brent, we've got an Ampeg Pf50t, part of the Portaflex series. And then we've got an Ampeg SVT VR. And then I've got an Ampeg B15R, which is one of my older bass amps here today. Was playing on the road with a band called Lava Hay, my first band in Toronto that I played with. And we were opening up for a band called Grapes of Wrath. And they would share their gear with us sometimes. On his tour, he had an SVT full 810 rig with a head. And we played in this small bar, and he let me use his rig, Tom Hooper, and I was like, man, this is amazing. It was on a low volume, that's the thing. It filled the room nicely and just had a great tone. So I remember playing that show and bookmarking, okay, SVT, that's got it going on. Fast forward to about 93 or 94 in Toronto, I picked up a used SVT, beautiful mint condition 74 rig with the matching 810 and head. And man, it was just like the end game. It was just like an amazing sound, loved it. and used it for years and years, and recordings, live playing. Flash forward to now, and you hit me up to this small guy, and it's incredible. Like, being an SVT owner, they captured the vibe in terms of the tone, the look and feel, and just so many great things about the SVT. And it's also got a similar 210 enclosure that's basically, if you were to cut the SVT 810 into 4 chunks, this would be one of the chunks. So they really nailed it, and it's a great, great amp. Okay, so very similar. One of the main differences is that in the vintage ones, they used an all-tube head, and it was crazy heavy, like 80 pounds or something. It's like the bass player's biggest guitar amp. Like, it sounded like a sweet guitar amp, but for bass. Some of them don't have a gain knob, so it's just a master. So you'd have to kind of crank it to get that tone. And I'm amazed. Like, I don't know what they've got going on in the Ampeg design department, but man, they just nailed it. Now, the great thing about this is it does have a gain knob on it. So if I am playing with it and if I max the gain out and just have this, the master on a lower level, you can get that SVT kind of grit that's a tube kind of grit. And I don't know how they do it, because as far as I know, there's no tubes in this. And the technology is super light, which is almost laughable. The first time I lift this up, like, you know, it's like weighs like, I don't know, a couple pounds or something. And with the cabinet, there's a thing with heads and cabinets that it's like a perfect dinner pairing. It's like they go together really well, like a nice wine with your steak or whatever. And they nailed it with this, because the cabinet is 210 not ported, and there's no tweeter on it or anything. I believe it's Eminence 210 drivers. So there again, they captured that vintage vibe on it. So it's very similar tone. And that's what blew me away. I'm like scratching my head going like, how do you do that? Kind of do this live, Brent, but it's something I wanted to kind of experiment with, but it's your trick that you showed me. I'm just overdriving the input. And this is just without the aid of... So if I put the input gain, max it out, to me, that's like a usable breakup, because sometimes if you put modern amps and you overdrive the gain, it's not really usable. Probably if you crank the low end, that's why I say, like, the design is just amazing. It's a totally usable kind of overdrive. This is without the OC2. And I'll kick it in now. And you might recognize this tune. Now, the cool thing about this Micro VR is, like, I'm kind of scratching my head, because the lower octave is actually speaking through there. I don't know how they've done it. You know, when I had my full-on SVT, that's one of the things I loved about it. It was almost like having a subwoofer because it would translate all the low-end information. And somehow they've done that in the Micro VR too, where I can play a C with an octave below it, and it's actually audible. Like I can even feel it in the room a little bit. And that's great on a big stage because this is a little bit tighter also. And if I'm going through the subs in the front of house, or if they've got a PA, that would be a nice tight sound to have, you know, coming off the stage. So, yeah. Sure, yeah. And actually, like you, Brent, I did own, like, I think it was a 70s one, and they were super great tonally. They had a lot of mid-range content and low-end content. Granted, the top end is kind of like I've heard it referred to as the bass treble, more like you're sitting 4 to 5K kind of range, and a nice musical thing. So if you grab a pick, or if you do fingers or a bit of slap, it's a nice musical treble. They were great for recording. For the live stuff, they didn't quite have the power to like play with a drummer, perhaps. And so moving up to the next one that I purchased used was the Pf50t. And I first saw it with rock bands like Hole. Melissa Oftemar, Canadian bass player, was playing with her at the time, and I was like, whoa, what's that sound? And she's playing on a giant stadium with it. So it's got a switch on it that takes you from 60 watts to 100. So it's quite a bit more gain, similar tone, possibly a bit more like a modern bass scoop on it. So the older ones had definitely a bit more mid-range perhaps. Now, fast forwarding to the new Pf50t Ampeg, I was just blown away with like how they captured the elements of both of the B15s that I was familiar with. So like the 70s and this more recent reissue. So tonally, you can do a lot of similar things on it. And it has a few more features that I think are great for the modern player. First of all, it's a lot more compact and light. So you can save your back. And the cabinet is got a really great design. The clips on the sides, in my opinion, are an improvement on the older ones. They're super tight, so I don't have to tape it down like I used to have to with this guy in a recording session. Now, the cool thing is that they haven't sacrificed anything in terms of tone. If anything, they've added improvements. There's more headroom on the Pf50t, I find, than my previous B15 Portaflex series. So that allows me to crank up the gain stage, because sometimes when you overdrive amps at the preamp stage, it's kind of usable, but maybe not really. And this one has a great overdrive sound on it, which was great because sometimes distortion in a recording on bass can help it sit and be heard and fit with the other instruments really well. I crank the preamp gain, and then I've got like the master just below half, and I've got it's purring nicely with a slightly kind of like overdriven sound, and there's lots of headroom left on it, which is a new thing. It's kind of like they're taking an old thing, maintaining it, and then tweaking it and improving it. And I don't know how they do it, but I'm just blown away. It's great. One of the blanket things I love about Ampeg is that their mid-range content, they leave a lot of it in, which quite frankly, in this modern day and age of recording and live playing, is super important because mid-range can often be the only thing that makes it to the end of the mix after everything's added on. So let's go for like, I'm gonna have no pedals and I'm gonna go all humbucker pickup on this one. And this is one of my favorite tones. I think B15s are the most recorded bass amp in history. And so a James Jamerson, Willie Weeks kind of thing, it immediately puts me in that zone if I've got the humbucker all the way up with a bit of tone off. So a nice kind of like vintage tone. This Yamaha bass, the P34, it's super versatile with the different tones. So to get that double single coil type of sound, I'll show you a bit of that here. So it's got a bit of a tighter sound, a bit more top end. And then to finish it off with the rear pickup, the single coil, the mid-range in this amp is great. It's all there. So it's all there, all the mid-range, and it's got a great tone that I've just come to love. I can't say enough great things about it. One thing that helps to kind of emulate a Moog synth a little bit, I simulate that with just like a straight up bass distortion, and you can kind of get a little more audible. And you can bring up a little bit, the oscillators on a synth. If I bring back the bass original tone and a second octave below, you can get even crazier stuff like this. And another thing that I'll just add is for upright bass, this rig is like unbelievable. There's one thing that I haven't talked about with these amps yet. It's almost kind of like, I call it like soul in a way, or sometimes with gear it might get in the way of you swinging, but I find with this, the sound is so natural, and a lot of times as an upright player you want to sound like the bass, only louder. Right. And I find it's about the closest I can get with a bunch of amps that I've tried. Are the Ampegs. When they first made these amps, it came with the Ampeg baby bass with a mic and the peg or something. I think that's where the Ampeg comes from. Like, I didn't even adjust the EQ on that. So that says to me, like, just how versatile a tone it is. Full range, lots of low end, super warm, and to be quite honest with you, inspires me, and just want to, take it everywhere I go, and makes me want to play all the time. It's great. Statement would be like 2 words, like end game. Like, it's just such a 360 thing. They think of anything you could want, like they think of and incorporate with the Ampeg amps and the Yamaha basses. And as I'm getting more and more familiar with them, I'm realizing how well they work together. And that's like incredible as a musician, because then you can forget about all that stuff. It kind of fades away and you can just be creative. Thank you for making this happen, because it makes our lives easier as musicians.
Drew, he's the best. He's the best. Drew is the best. He's one of the most amazing musicians I know, and full disclosure, I've had many opportunities to be in the studio with Drew, and he never ceases to amaze. No matter what kind of music you throw at him, any kind of tone, he's just, he's the best. Anyway, thank you, Drew. That was amazing. He let you in on a little secret from our studio days together, and I thought that I would pull the curtain on that for you. It is the Mxr Microamp. And I have to thank, I learned about this pedal from another good friend of mine, Noah Mintz, who's one of the country's premier mastering engineers, who had bands in the 90s, and he was a guitar player. And he told me that this thing was his secret weapon for guitar. So, of course, I ran out and bought it because he has impeccable taste in tone. And turned out I didn't like it for guitar, but I had it. So I decided I needed to figure out what I did like it for. And it turned out for bass. And it's on almost every record I made through my entire studio days on bass. And of course, we were always using Ampeg because it's the sound of bass, and it's the only amp I ever really wanted to record. And like Drew said, I had a 70s one, and or still have a 70s one. Yeah, it's so it's this. But anyway, why do I like this so much? And hopefully those of you that are interested in this can try it at home or in the studio or maybe live. What I like about this particular pedal, and you may find a boost that works better for you, but it does kind of an EQ thing, and it brings out the upper mids a little bit so that they help cut through. You don't even need to dial up the gain very much. I find that I start with the gain either off or low, and then when I do turn up the gain, it's not necessarily for distortion. And you know, a lot of great bass players are always talking about distorting tone, and it's not necessarily because you want distortion in the mix so that you hear the distortion, but a little bit of distortion will give a bass presence. And so what I like this for is in a really dense mix where there's lots of low end, but you're having trouble hearing the bass. I'm sure many of you have experienced that before. And this just is sort of the, oh, there it is, there's the bass when you turn it up. And so it's a pretty amazing tool. Check it out. Happy autumn. It's the fall. It's back to school. I can't believe it. How did we get here? And how did we get to episode 3 of Yamaha 440 Sessions? I hope that you've enjoyed the first 2 and what you've seen so far about tonight. We've got lots more to come. But if you are enjoying all this stuff that we're doing, I would like to direct you to, if my mouse would work, Yamaha Canada Solutions Facebook page. And this is where you can find out about everything that's upcoming, both with Y440 and also with our other streaming thing that we do, Steinberg Sessions, which is a sort of music production type thing. So please check it out at Yamaha Canada Solutions. So Ampeg just released this new series of amps. By the way, if you want to check out any of the products that we're talking about tonight, you can get them here at ampeg.com. So you'll find everything that we're showing you tonight here, plus some other things, including fun stuff like plugins for your music productions. So yeah, come and check out the ampeg.com site. And of course, you know, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, I know Steve Piccone, who's the marketing manager here at Yamaha Canada for Ampeg. He's floating around in the chat, so feel free to ask him questions or reach out to him after the fact. Anyway, what I was going to get to was we got these new amps. Ampeg made these things, they're called Rocket Bass. And these things are special, not just because they're Ampeg and because they sound like Ampeg amps, but because they're kind of like the do-everything amp. They kind of work for pros, they kind of work for people starting out, they kind of just work. And one of the things that makes these so fantastic is the price point. Like the first one starts at about $200. So, you know, do yourself a favor and run down to your local music shop and check these out, because for a couple $100, even the big one is under $1,000. For a couple $100 or under $1,000, the amount of tone in these things is pretty darn crazy. Okay, so We loaned some of these Rocket Bass amps to our good friend Manny D. He's on social media as Manny D Bass. And he got together with us, and of course, we always have cameras when we meet up with our friends. And we had a chat with him about Rocket Bass. And without further ado, Manny D.
Yes, yeah, I'm talking about myself. I'm ready to talk about the bass, not
Just
myself.
say I'm Manny D, bass player. I do sessions. I play lots of gigs around, just whatever.
Hire me, yeah. Okay, wait, let me try again. Hey, I'm Manny D. I'm a bass player from the GTA area, and I'm ready to play for you because I play for anybody I can. I started playing bass in high school, I guess a little bit later than usual. I just love music, and then just some friends of mine had a band. They didn't have a bass player, but they had a bass and an amp, and they figured they could teach me. And I just followed their left hand, and I did that right through high school, and it was great. I was in the band right away, and I worked hard to keep up. I always loved music, so this was great. And then I ended up going to Humber from that somehow, some way. So for me, that was my first lesson experiences, and I took it all in, and I loved it. Got to play upright, learned that there, and fell in love with that instrument. Just getting pushed. I love getting pushed, so it was for that was good. Oh yeah, I mean the bass community at Humber's great. We would just share everything with them. I'd be like, hey, how do you slap like that? Oh, okay, and then we would hang out. I don't know. I just took it all in. You just worked hard, right? Working hard is easy for me. When I got out, yeah, you do. You just play everything, play every gig. Just throw myself in every different style. Didn't matter, any band. I like playing with good players. So I'll play Brown Eyed Girl all night with like A-list players. Because there'll be something special about it. Yeah, that happens a lot. That happens a lot to me. I always try to stay grounded and just really enjoy the moment. I'll have to say, like once a week, that'll happen. I play, especially during the good times, pre-COVID times, I would play a lot, 3, 4, 5 gigs. This week happens to be a 5-gig week for me, and I just play. I'm lucky I get to play with, maybe not well-known, but really good players and really tight groups. But every time I'm on stage, I don't take it for granted, and I really enjoy every show. Oh, I have a lot of amps, different amps, because the upright and the upright bass sounds better through a combo, like a 10 or an 8. And, and then bigger shows, bring out a 410, smaller shows, bring out a 112. And then the basses always change. I just have so many basses, right? I want to use them all for starters. But the pedal board is different all the time. And it's generally a 4-string passive. Bass is generally what I'm using. I like my passive instruments. You know, I'm a big fan of the envelope filter and an octave. I like those. So sometimes I'll just bring those two. I got compliment once from a sound guy. He's just like, "Oh, you don't leave it on the whole song." And I'm like, "No, it's for sections, right?" You know, on and off. So this bass in my hands is the Peter Hook signature model, the BB-PH, which makes sense because it's a BB bass. And I just learned that the BB stands for broad bass. Solid 4-string, just solid, simple, perfect. So, I mean, this is passive. There's your active. It just gives it that touch of active sound. This is all 12 o'clock. Right, and then lots of different sounds, right? So I have, look at all these wonderful Ampeg Rocket Bass amps. We've got 5 different versions of them, and they're all fabulous in their own way. Open the box, you know, and you pull this guy, and I pulled this guy out first, and I was like, this is gorgeous. This is such a nice looking cab. So my first impression was a good impression right off the bat, and then I pulled that one out, and I was like, wow, I'm pulling this out of the box, right? And as a gigging musician, that felt good to be able to lift it with one hand. So light and good looking. I was like, all right, let's plug these in. They sound like Ampegs. And how do I explain that? And it's so hard because there's a bit of a sound. There's an Ampeg sound, and these ones have nailed it. And I love I have an old vintage B15, and I've played many SVTs in my life. Now, how are you supposed to get that sound in a solid state? They get close. An Ampeg sound, they all kind of sound like Ampeg. I love the simplicity of these amps. Just having the bass, mid, and treble, and volume, and then I love the ultra high and ultra low things. It's just like, okay, here's a room that has no bottom end, just push that, and I can leave my settings the same. And these guys have built-in distortion now. The Super Grit technology. This one here has the 2 knobs, the grit and the level, and the little guys just have one little push button, which, and it sounds great. I mean, built-in distortion is always, you always kind of like, why? You know, is it going to be worth it? You know, is it going to sound good? This sounds good. This is usable. I would definitely use this distortion on a gig, for sure. I should just play the distortion because I found a bunch of settings that I enjoyed. Now, the first one, so what I liked about this, just for the simplicity of like, you just use this as a boost, right? So the grid off, level on 10, right? So now you can cut through a bit just by pushing the button. Now, so that works. And it's pretty, you know, you don't really hear the distortion in it. A little bit, right? But then I like that setting. I liked the grid at half, or actually a little bit lower, sorry, for that. It's nice. It's got a nice sound. I'm always a big fan of the making it, you know, very fuzzy. Sounds great. You want to do your Motorhead and all that stuff. Like, it just sounds great. It's big and heavy, and that's at the volumes at, at 3. And it's producing that, like, you've got a lot of room to turn that up and crush it on a gig if you had to, right? If you're playing in that style of band. I feel like they designed it for, rock players that didn't want to carry the SVT around and give them another option. Definitely made it for the gigging musician. This is definitely for the working musician. Also, the price point for these are really good. So you have a really sweet small amp for $200, but then you have a gigging amp for under $1,000, like $900. The price point is amazing.
Manny, such a fun guy. We had a good time hanging at the Oscar Peterson studio at Yamaha Canada Music headquarters. So thank you, Manny. Manny's a busy guy, so catch him while you can, because man, I don't know if there's any more space in his calendar for all the gigs he plays. So Manny D. This would be the point in the night where I say, I hope you enjoyed this and we hope to see you next month. But we don't even have to wait that long, because it's not going to be a whole month before we see you next time. And here's why. I'm really excited about this. Really excited. So, Yamaha 440 Sessions, we are presenting a return to live concert week. That's right, I said week, from Monday, September 20th through Saturday, September 25th. We're flying in some of our favorite people from all over the country to Toronto, and we're going to do live streamed concerts every night of the week at 7 o'clock on these channels that you're watching right now. And there's all kinds of music. There's some rock and roll. There's some kind of country roots stuff. There's some blues. There's some folky kind of singer-songwriter stuff. There's something for everyone. So we hope that you will join us. We chose these people very carefully because they're wonderful and amazing, and I know you're gonna love these shows. So can't wait to see you. 10 days. We better start doing tech rehearsals or something, because that's coming quickly. But anyway, we're ready for it. It's going to be great. So we'll see you on Monday, September 20th, and we'll see you every night that week. And we're going to have like t-shirts and things to give away, and we'll be chatting in the little chat window. It'll be fantastic. It's going to be fun. It'll be like hanging out at a music festival, but you don't have to leave your home. Or if you want to take your computer outside and watch the concerts out in your backyard, or you could even like go to a big park and watch the shows there, and it would be like being at a festival. Anyway, we're gonna take it out tonight with a short little video from our good friend Gina Kennedy. You've seen her before. She plays in the Mono Whales, which they're blowing up everywhere right now. They're opening for like all the big groups. She plays with Skye Wallace, and they're on the East Coast touring right now. And she also plays with Altered by Mom, who will be playing, Skye Wallace and Altered by Mom will be playing our concert week. So I was fortunate enough to go hang out at this, they did this live recording video shoot thing, and it was fun because they were playing a Yamaha grand piano and a Yamaha drum kit, and of course Gina plays her Yamaha bass and her Ampeg rig. And it was a great tune, and it was a lot of fun, and we got to talk to Gina about some of her impressions of the equipment. And so we'll send you out with that, and thank you for coming again to Yamaha 440 Sessions. We'll see you on the 20th, and if we don't see you on the 20th, we'll see you on the 21st. And if we don't see you on the 21st, we'll see you. You get the idea. Anyway, and we hope to see you next month. Here's Gina Kennedy, Altered by Mom.
That should be the intro.
Totally. Sessions with Brent.
Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Gina Kennedy. Hi, my name is Gina, and I play bass. My name is Gina, and I play bass.
There you go. That's good.
Is it worse to be hurt in the heart or the brain?
Or the mind, I don't mind, but I'll sing just the same.
It's a pain in the head, in the ass, it'll pass.
Is it truth? Is it lies? Do we grow? Will we die?
Do we drown or get shot? Maybe choke on the smoke?
Maybe hang by our necks. What the heck? All the same.
Do we hug? Do we kiss? Do we even exist? Are you pissed? Are you mad? I can't tell what this is. 'Cause
Yeah, so I truthfully have never really had a Yamaha bass in my possession before, and I love it. I didn't think that I would love it as much as I do. It kind of has, you know, the qualities of a P bass that I love, but comes fully loaded and is just a really cool sound, really cool tone. The passive active is really neat, and the fact that you can switch you know, the neck to the bridge pickups is a really cool quality that I'm really enjoying. Yeah, I'm mostly in passive and in the neck area here, which I'm favoring at the moment. So that's what I played with today for the session that we did, and it's, yeah, I'm kind of falling in love. We used this guy over here. So your Ampeg. Yeah, this lovely boy here. First time that I've used this guy, and he did a great job.
So how different is it from what you're used to?
The tone I was searching for is kind of this tone, so everything sort of worked out in my favor today. So
Cool.
Very pleased.
Was it? How would you describe the tone?
Very rich. You know, don't lose any of the low end at all, but there's enough mid there that it has a lot of presence. You know, if you want to kind of play around a little bit, it won't get lost. Very friendly with your pedals. You can manipulate very well, but also has that very, you know, that bass sound that you want to ring through, because that's the point of the bass. So we're coming for you. Watch out.